Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Phobya, I will get the word in right, Phobya UltraBIG water cooling case. And the name is it states the obvious, because, well, saying it's ultra big is probably quite a polite way of putting it, because I would say it was something beginning with F big, because it's huge. I think I would probably say chuffing. That would be the polite way of me putting it. But it is absolutely enormous. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the radiators that it supports at the beginning, because if I try and do it as we go around, then it'll get a bit nuts. But in the front of the case, there's option for one 280mm radiator, one 200mm radiator, one 240mm radiator, 180mm radiator, 120mm radiator. So obviously not all at the same time, but that is what you could put in the front. In the roof, you could put a 480 rad, a 420 rad, a 400 rad. That's one of the new Phobya 2x200mm rads, a 360 rad, a 280 rad, a 240 rad, a 200 rad, a 180 rad, a 140 rad, or a 120 rad. Although the single fan radiators I'm really not a fan of, so I would ignore that. In the bottom you can fit a 480mm rad, a 420, a 400, 360, 280, 240, 200, 180, 140, 120. In the mid plate you can put, and I'll show you a mid plate because there is a separate doofer along the bottom, you can put a 480, a 420, a 400, a 360, a 280, a 240, a 200, a 180, a 140, or a 120, and you could technically put two 280s, two 240s, two 200s, two 180s, two 140s, or two 120s. So it's nuts. And there's also space on the side that you can fit a 1080, which is a 9x 120mm radiator as well. So the radiator options on this thing are just batshit crazy, to be honest with you. It's just so many radiator options, it's nuts. But what we're going to do, I'll bring the camera in, we'll have a look around. Lighting with this thing is going to be crazy, but I'll try my best. We'll have a good look around it, then we'll get the side off and have a look at all the stuff inside and everything like that, like we kind of normally would do. But you have to unbolt all of this, as I'll explain to you in a minute. So it is actually a mission to take this thing apart. But it is all modular, as I'll talk to you about in a minute. Anyway, we're starting to do too much of the review now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my trusty remote. I'm going to bring the camera in and yeah, we'll have a close-up look. So starting at the top, we have 5 optical bays available. Although if I just zoom in, I'll show you that if you do fit a radiator in the top, that's a 60mm thick radiator there. You can see the Phobya badge, because I've used Phobya radiators throughout. That you will lose the top 2 optical bays, so that's kind of worth keeping in mind. Because then if you have an optical drive in it, and say for argument's sake a double bay radiator, a reservoir, then you'll that'll be all of your slots filled up. So it's worth keeping in mind. Now also at the top, if you have a look, you can see the start of the Allen keys, which you'll see throughout the whole of this case. There's 2 at the top. There's another 2 slightly further down. When the camera sorts itself out, there we go. I need to keep my hand away. Slightly further down from that, you can see the Phobya badge, and then there's 2 90mm, or the 20mm actually, but holes there. I'm just going to zoom back out again, because the camera will have a fit this time. As an optional extra, you can buy these switches, which I'll just whiz out. They're what we call anti-vandal switches. And you can get these in all different colours: blue, black, white, red. I think they do green as well. And these are, everyone's seen these switches. You do have to wire them up yourself. There are guides online, plenty of guides online. There we go. Some of the pins are for the switch, some of the pins are for the LED, and basically one set of the pins is for push to make contact, so when you push it that will make it on, and then the other pins are for push to break, so when it's pressed then that's off, and you just wire it up accordingly. So you can have push to make, push to break, and then the other pins are for the LED. These ones, I've got a white and a blue one, but I didn't want to fit them straight away because I wanted to show you. I should really do all this on camera. You just screw them into place, and I'll show you what this one looks like in there. I'll walk over and do it now. There we go. And it does really suit the front. I really like them. I've always liked those switches. I prefer the ring switches to the ones with a dot in the middle as well. It may sound really, really anal, but the way they actually activate and when you push them, how they feel is completely different. So I've always preferred these ones. Now I'm going to take it back out again. Well, he says he's going to. But yeah, I have got. They did send me the two to go with it. They're about I think they're £12 to £15 each. I can't remember off the top of my head now. They are brilliant switches, and like I said, all you need to do is wire them up, and then you can make the cables fit exactly how you want them and braid them if you wish and all that kind of stuff. Now further down, you get your first look at the radiators for the front, and as I've already gone through all the radiators that you can put there. We've actually got a 280mm radiator mounted there at the moment, which was 2 times 140mm. But when we get to the inside, we'll show you a bit more. We go slightly further down, you can see the feet at the bottom of the case. It does come with those casters as well. There's 2 wheels on them. They spin, obviously, as you'd expect them to, but there's no locking mechanism on them at all. They're quite sturdy, screw in with 4 bolts. Does the job perfectly well, really, other than the fact that, like I said, they don't have a locking mechanism on them. Now, if we go round to the other side of the case, you can see all the shadows that I'm causing because I've got the lights quite close because the camera's having a field day with the dark on this case. You can see the 920mm fan mounts there. Now stepping in front of the camera, I'm grabbing this, the 920mm fan mounts, and that's for the 1080 Phobya radiator that you can bolt straight to the side of the case. You can take the side panel off and it can all bolt straight on, but you can also get this cost option, which is basically a cage that you can have fitted to the side of the case so that you can it basically protects the radiator and it all kind of bolts on into place. And yeah, that's how that goes on. And then you can have your hoses coming out the end if you want, and there's all different mounting points, so you can put pumps on the top, reservoirs on the side, do whatever you want basically, and you can have it whichever way. It's very, very modular kind of an idea there. But that's what you can do on that side. You can also see through to some of the cabling that we've already got on the inside. Now if we spin this round, you can see that there's no window, and I know loads of you are already going to be moaning about that. I'm just going to, there we are, all zoomed right the way out, there we go. But you can fit a 180, a 200 or a 220 in the side of this, and it's got multiple mounts here so that you can basically get all the different types of fans on. Now because of the window, I know a lot of you, like I said, are instantly going to be going, oh, it's not really a looker or anything like that. But as we kind of progress with the review, we'll look at those that kind of options, that kind of thought a little bit more. Now onto the back. As you can see though, as we're doing this, actually having it on wheels is making my life quite easy. Rear exhaust, 120mm fan only. There's no room there for a 140, which considering the size of the case, you think they may have made it a bit wider. But anyway, we've also got 2 water cooling grommets in the back, which is quite mad when you think about it, considering the amount of radiator options there are on the inside. But it's obviously if you have the massive radiator on the side, you're going to need to be able to get the cables in. There's 3 power supply mounts. 2 vertical ones, these are in the main chamber, and then a horizontal one, and this is in the lower chamber, and it just gives you the options to put it where you want. I've never really found the need to actually have 2 power supplies, other than when I was doing my massive stupid benching rig, and I basically run out of connection, so I ran a second one. In a rig like this, I'm not sure that I would use it, but the options are there anyway, and you've obviously got 3 places that you can put the one if you ever use it. There's also 2 more grommets on the left hand side at the bottom, and 2 more at the right hand side, so you can have lots and lots of external kind of options here, and going in and out wherever you want. What I'm going to have to do now though is switch the camera off and basically rejig the camera so that we can have a look at the roof. Right, I know it's not the best way to do it, but short of putting the case on the floor so the camera can look on the top of it, this is the easiest way. As you can see, we've got Watercooling grommets in all 4 corners. You may have a radiator outside, bolted on the outside of the case, with the fans on the inside, for example. You may end up with, I don't know, massive reservoirs or something up here. The options are endless. We can also see by this mass expanse of perforations, or this big grill, whatever you want to call it, and all the different fitment holes, it just shows you how many of those radiators you can get on here. And like I said, just to go over the ones that you can get on the top: a 480, a 420, a 400, a 360, a 280, a 240, a 200, a 180, a 140, and a 120. So there's absolutely loads that you can do in the top there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the case back upright, and then I'm going to take the side panel off, and we'll have a look at what's on the inside. Hey, first look with the side off. And like I said, there's a lot to cover. What I'll do is I'll start at the bottom, because what I want to explain is you can have a radiator fitted into the bottom of the case, which is what we've done. Fans are on the bottom, bolted up through into the radiator. Or you can do it the opposite way round, and you can bolt it into the mid plate as well. So you can do it either way, it really depends. One thing I will say though, if I drop the camera down a little bit, I'm not sure whether it'll pick it up, but there's about 2 mil of room above that's a 60 mil thick radiator with a normal size fan in the bottom, which is 25 mil thick, and there's only a couple of millimeters in it. So you can get basically a 60 mil thick rad down there with a single set of fans. Easiest way to get them in is if I scroll over this way and zoom in. Pretty much the whole of the case is modular, and you can see that screw there on the right hand side. Now there are 4 of those in either corner of the case. I don't need to show you all of them, you will understand what I mean. You take that out, and basically you can take the mid plate out as one piece, and you can either then bolt the radiator to the mid plate or bolt the radiator in the bottom, but you do need to take that out to be able to get the radiator in there. Especially by the time you've put the fans in there, there's just not enough room to squeeze everything in. There is, in the bottom, up in this end, you can see that there's that open area. I know the camera's kind of juddering a bit, but there's an open area there. Basically the air coming up from the radiator, if you have it there, also blows over kind of the hard drive area as well. So you've got the large kind of mesh area, which goes pretty much all the way along, but then you've got that open area as well, so that if the hard drives are pushed right to the front, which they can be without a radiator there, you've also got the air being blown on the hard drives. Zooming back over this way, one thing I will say is if you have your power supply in the bottom, as we have, you can see that it does block a bit of the airflow for the radiator up. So if you were to have 2 power supplies in there, then you would be blocking quite a chunk of that radiator flow in the bottom. Now this is also when it gets a bit complicated, because the reason why they say you can fit rads to the mid plate or in the bottom is also because you could put your power supply in the bottom and then have your radiator above. But if you put the radiator above and you use a big one, you then also lose the chance of basically this bit here is the hard drive cage. If you put a radiator all the way along the bottom, you then have to remove that hard drive cage. One of the things I do like about the hard drive cage though is if I kind of move up a bit, you can see it mounts to the radiator as well, and it directs some of the airflow from the rad pretty much directly over the hard drive, so it's like a two-in-one thing. It also helps keep the hard drive cage rigid, and obviously it adds a bit of extra support to the radiator there as well, and it's also bolted in the bottom, but it needs to be kept rigid because without hard drives in it, we go to the top, there's nothing at the top of it, so it does kind of flap around, so that's where all those extra kind of bits come in. Now, looking at the front of the case, you can see, as I said, we've put a 280mm rad in the front. That's a 60mm thick one with a single set of fans. If you have a look at the bottom of the hard drive cage there, we are on the limits. It's almost perfect fit for a 60mm rad and a single set of fans. If you were to put a second set of fans in for push-pull, you end up running into some problems with mounting the hard drive cage again. So there's lots of options, but you've also got to be pretty specific about what you want to do with it, because push-pull in the front and the hard drive cage and it actually bolt in isn't going to happen. Anyway, there is a fair amount of length in the case, or I say length. The top graphics card there is a 590, which is the longest NVIDIA graphics card on the market at the moment. That fits fine. A 6990 will fit fine, but it does get quite close to the graphics card, to the hard drives, which is why we've put that there. You can see that if the hard drive was right level with the graphics card, it would be a bit tight, but you can get it all in there. For anyone that's asking, they are original Corsair cables. They're the ones that you can buy as an aftermarket option now for the AX series. I don't think you can get them in the UK yet, but they should be coming fairly soon. Talking of cables, as you can see, we've had to put the 8-pin up the front, because the only way that we could have done it would have been to have put that cable in before the motherboard and literally had it going the entire length of the motherboard, because there's nowhere at the top of the case for us to be able to pass it through. There's a flap that goes right the way over there, and you just couldn't have done it. So we'd have to have really gone right the way up the back, and it's just a bit of a pain in the butt, to be honest with you. There are ways you could have done it, but by the time we got the power supply in there, it was a bit too late. So make sure that you think about your cabling before you put any hardware in. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is, it's literally just moving it up a bit. There we go. That is a 60mm thick radiator, and then we got a set of fans there. Now, the fan that is missing, basically it needed about 2mm, otherwise it hit the heatsink on the top of the motherboard there. The MOSFET heatsink, before anyone starts saying, why would you want a CPU heatsink? We're talking about the MOSFET heatsink at the top of the board. Might not look like it would have done, but it does foul that heatsink, only just, which is why we've not fitted it. So you pretty much, if you're going to run a full-size rad in the roof, you do have to be fairly careful, or be prepared to maybe get a file out or something. And like I said, you might not think it would, but it is immensely close. You can see that the fan there is actually ever so slightly over the motherboard. It misses the motherboard screws, but not the motherboard itself. I think the designers have done it on the actual screw threads, rather than thinking that you still have like another 3 or 4mm of motherboard that will hang over the edge. And when we go that way, you can see why it fouls the actual heatsink itself. There is literally only a couple of millimeters in it. If the motherboard literally stopped where the mounting points are, it would have been fine. So I don't know whether that's a little bit of a cock-up in the design stage, or whether that's just something that they didn't think was relevant. But I think, considering how big this case is, an extra 5mm of roof, 5mm taller, I don't think that would have been too much of a problem. Because I think, personally, that a 60mm thick radiator is almost like an industry standard. So for a case this big, not to support that and a set of fans in the roof, I think it's a bit of an oversight. I do like the cutout in the optical bays though. If you look on the right hand side at the top, the fact that the the full length optical base support doesn't really start until the third one. I really do like that as a kind of a feature. Something else is the motherboard grommets. You can see they're on the right outside of the board there. Now with those, you couldn't put, there's none big enough to put a 24 pin through at all. And also where the case does support a HTPX board, you've also got those extra cutouts at the outside of this. We're using a G1 Assassin. It's a 1366 board, but it's the only XL ATX board that I've got. But you can see we've had to route the cables out through there, and it's cables with this case are never really going to be tidy. Even in the bottom there, you can see, I mean, that's their version of cable grommets, and to me they're just they're hose grommets, not like proper power supply cable routing grommets. So the case is absolutely enormous. There is in the back, if we have a look, I'll zoom out a little bit more. I'm doing it all from back here, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 PCI slots in the back. So you can get a full XL ATX board in like we have, and still have an extra slot at the bottom. So you can get a full like quad graphics card set up in there should you wish, or lots of options to be able to move your graphics cards around. But one thing I did think is, with the way we've got this set up now, if I kind of zoom out, although it is a big case, with that setup, if you didn't want to use a reservoir in the optical bays, and you wanted to use a tube res, there's not really anywhere in there that you could put a decent length tube res. So I think it's a bit limited there as well. You can pretty much only really put it right at the very back of the case, between the outside of the case and where the graphics cards start. That's really the only place that I can think of like putting it. Oh, I hit the tripod. So really with this, I wouldn't kind of buy the bits that you like the look of and then chuck them in however's best. Best thing I can say with this case is to take a look at it and then think about how you're going to put everything in there to start off, you know, from the get-go. But that's not even for this case, really, it's for every case. Literally think about the hardware that you want to put in it, how you're going to hose it, how you're going to do this, how you're going to do that. Because water cooling, for me, has got to be about aesthetics. But on that note, because I'm now going to start going into a conclusion, I'm going to switch the camera off now, and we can break off to the conclusion, and I'll give you my take on what I think of this case. Right then, peeps, moving on to the conclusion. And there's a fair bit I want to say, really, but start off with the price. £217, which, considering the size of the case, isn't too bad a price, really. Now, the award, I always say the award from the start. Now, I've been fighting over myself with this, but I think I'm going to have to, and I don't do this very often because a lot of you kind of moan at me about it. Oh, everything he reviews is gold and silver. And that's generally because the stuff that would have got bronze or not got an award at all, I tend not to make videos of, because I just like to make videos of the nice stuff, because that's a lot of you out there. Yes, you do look at reviews to be able to stuff that you want to buy, but most of you out there watch reviews because you just want to see what stuff's like, and you may not be able to afford everything, so you're just looking at the nice stuff, and you're not going to spend 45 minutes watching a video of mine if it's something that you're not going to like, or at least 45 minutes and then think, oh, that was a waste of time. But anyway, but this I am going to dig the bronze award out for, and I'll kind of explain my take on it. Now, there's a lot of good things to say about it, but at the same time there's a few kind of negative points about it in my opinion as well. So we'll start with the good things. You can fit fucking loads of radiators in this thing, and I don't mind swearing about it because it needs to be kind of expressed in quite a way, because you can get loads in it. I mean, the bottom, the mid plate, the front, the roof, there's an immense amount of options for water cooling in this thing, to the point where you could probably, you know, sit it by the side of your car and still be able to keep your car cool. There's so many radiator options in this thing, especially with that 9x 120mm that you can fit on the side. The other good thing about it really is it's all modular. Literally it all unscrews, and you can take the whole thing down into its component parts if you want to. So if you wanted to paint it, then you could do that if you wanted to. But I don't think many of you are going to want to, because this is where the kind of negative side of things starts to come in. There's no real way that you can make it tidy. Not unless you quite literally wanted to go as far as to making cables for everything, cutting this, cutting that, and just spending like weeks or days, weeks, months making cables and making everything tidy. I don't think you're ever going to get it, properly nice. That's new Steve-O's phone going off. Not Mr. Strawberry. Mr. Strawberry took an arrow to the knee and has died. But yeah, there's no real way that you're going to be able to make it tidy, I don't think. I also think that really with the way everything's kind of laid out, I mean, I like it, but it's also still quite limiting. The only place that you can really fit push-pull with a 60mm rad is going to be in the front, but then the hard drive cages can't be screwed onto it. You can't fit push-pull on the bottom, you can't fit push-pull in the roof because of fouling the motherboard. So it's massive, but you can't fit push-pull. Now, with this amount of radiator options, you don't necessarily need push-pull anyway, and I only ever really do it for looks more often than not. So you've got lights that show on the outside of the case if you've got LED fans, and you have another set on the inside, so it kind of lights the case up. So that's generally why I would normally do it. There's not a massive performance benefit with push-pull unless you're going to turn the fans right down or have them, really, really slow spinning. So there'll be a lot of you disappointed out there that a case so big you can't fit push-pull. Going back to aesthetics, there's no window panel in the side, and aesthetics again really brings me into like cable tidying. You can't really make it look tidy. The fact that it supports HTPX, but you've just got big gaps left in the side, it's almost like it's a really industrial case. It's definitely, you're not going to buy this if you want it for looks. This is the type of case that you can fit anything in it and you'll be able to cool it as well. But even though it's massive, it doesn't make the fact of keeping everything cool simple, because like I said, you can't fit push-pull, you can't do this, you can't do that. So you really do need to put some thought into it as well. It's not something you can just buy, chuck bits at and hope for the best. So I almost gave it the Innovation Award because of the fact that you can fit so many radiators in it, but then it's not really very innovative, making it kind of big, so you can fit loads of radiators in it, and then it not really have had the final kind of polishing touches on it to make you think, wow, that's actually quite good. So that's why I went with bronze. It definitely needs a thumbs up for the fact it's huge. It's going to give you loads of options, and there's several things about it I do like, but it's not really something I personally, I'm struggling, because for me, I'm like a great deal of you out there, I like my rig to look nice, and I can't ever see me being able to build a nice rig inside of this. But like I said, there's many of you out there are just going to want to build it, have it screaming, massive overclocks, running with the fans on next to nothing, and like, I don't know, 3 rads in a loop or multiple loops and loads of Luigi spaghetti and all that kind of stuff. And you'll love it, the fact that you can get everything in there. But for me, personally, water cooling is all about aesthetics. I don't see the point in spending all that money and then having it looking minging. I love it to all be tidy and sleek and just looking the part, because it will still keep it cool if you do it the tidy way, and you'll only ever make it a little bit cooler by doing it the stupidly anal way. So yeah, really for me, that's why I kind of, it does deserve a bronze. It is still a good case. It's just, for me, there's just one too many, you can't do this if you do that, and you can't do this if you do that, and I can't ever see it, being able to be tidy. So hopefully I've kind of explained that, because it is a bit, like I said, it is a bit of a difficult one. There'll be the people out there that buy it, you'll love it, but the people that will think about buying it, the ones that don't buy it, will be because it just wouldn't be the case for them because they couldn't make it tidy. But like I said, the ones that did buy it, you're going to absolutely love it. So yes, I'm going to leave the review here, but for now, this is Tiny Tom Logan, which is what turned out to be quite a long case review, really, considering, with another video for you. Out. Yeah, you catch the door when it falls off. Got to make a cup of tea in a minute though. But I want some donuts. And my body's saying, yes, I like donuts. I want the donuts. But then my diet's telling me, no, you're not allowed donuts. Don't be fucking stupid. We've got seas of green, red roses true. I see the moon.
I get the impression.
For me. And I think to myself, what a wonderful arse. Ooh, look at it, it's so pretty. Thank you, Steve. You may sit down.